When we think about abuse, most of us picture adult relationships. But the truth is, many abusive patterns actually start a lot earlier. Just like adults, 1 in 3 teens are going to experience some form of dating abuse and coercive control before they even graduate high school. And often it doesn't look like bruises. It looks like constant texting, pressure to prove your love, being isolated from friends, or feeling like you can't ever say no. Today on Hey Tabby, we are talking about teen dating violence, or I'd rather call it teen coercive control, what it looks like, how to spot it, and most importantly, how to protect and empower the next generation. Welcome to Hey Tabby, the podcast where we talk about the hard things out loud with our actual lips. We'll cover all kinds of topics across the mental health spectrum, including how it intersects with the Christian faith. Nothing is off limits here, and we are not take 2 verses and call me in the morning. I'm Tabitha Westbrook, and I'm a licensed trauma therapist, but I'm not your trauma therapist. I'm an expert in domestic abuse and coercive control, and how complex trauma impacts our health and well-being. Our focus here is knowledge and healing. Trauma doesn't have to eat your lunch forever. There is hope. Now, let's get going. Welcome to this week's episode of Hey Tabby. I am so glad that you are here. Today, as I mentioned, we are going to be talking about coercive control relationships in teenagers. And I really wish that it did not happen. I wish that this was not like a thing. Unfortunately, it is actually a thing. And I've worked with so many teens that experience this. And a lot of times I will get also adults who start telling me about their high school relationships. And this is part of their story and they've never told anybody. So I want to talk today about why we need to understand this, why it's important, and also how to really start understanding how to get ahead of it, basically, how we can stop this problem and hopefully keep it from going into adulthood for people. A lot of times, coercive control begins for people in adolescence. It's a pattern that begins there. I've worked with so many clients who say, yes, my spouse was already doing this when we were dating as kids, as high school sweethearts. And that's terrible and terrifying and not what we want to have happen. But it's important to know that it does happen. Like all abuse, all things are related to power and control. So it's all about coercive control. It is all about power and control. And it is not any different than an adult relationship. It's a little bit easier to spot, I think, sometimes for teenagers, just because they haven't refined the manipulative skills yet, which is good because we can get ahead of it and hopefully also call the abusive party to accountability so that it does not continue in their life. It's not a good pattern for anybody, no matter who it is, whether it's the perpetrator or the victim. If we can catch it early, then we can keep it out of the adult relational sphere for sure. Teen coercive control looks similar to what we see in adults, but a little bit different as well. So we have things like the emotional manipulation, telling someone, I need you to do this because I'm sad and it will help me feel better, when it's something the person doesn't want to do, or saying, if you loved me, you would. I've heard that so many times from teens, especially teen girls, where they're told by their boyfriends or a guy that they're interested in, well, if you really loved me, then you'd fill in the blank, whatever fill in the blank is for that person. And it's usually something that the person doesn't want to do, like a sexual activity or going somewhere, even doing something that they're not into, whatever that is. You also see things like coercion. So that manipulation of, I'm going to get you to do what I want so I can get what I want. Hey, I need you to like buy me stuff out of the vending machine because I don't have any money. You know how it is at home. And like, look, if you do it, then that'd be awesome. If not, then do you even care about me? So all of that, like pushing those things together to get what they want. You'll see intimidation. I will go beat up your other friends if you don't do what I ask you to do, or I will tell your parents this or that about you if you don't do what I want you to do. Those are the things that we frequently see. You may also see things like digital abuse. I need your Instagram password. I need your Snapchat password. I need your TikTok password. And going through and deleting posts that the victim has made, deleting friends, blocking people, all kinds of things, using things like Life 360 or location on the phone to keep track of where their girlfriend or boyfriend is at. And that is a form of digital abuse. You also will see things like sexual pressure. I want you to do this. I want you to go this far. I want you to allow this with me. I want you to watch pornography with me. And I know that it might be a bit shocking to think of your teenager watching pornography or having accounts that would do that. And I'm telling you, one of the things that I heard often when my own son was in high school was the amount of, we'll just say, pornographic sites that people had access to and how it was just super normal, especially for the boys to talk about those things, which, is, I think if you're a parent listening to this, you probably feel like this is literally my worst nightmare. I don't know what to do with this. And I want to just let you know that there are ways to get ahead of it and deal with it. And I think, again, honest conversations with our boys and girls about the dangers of pornography, about how it distorts what healthy sexuality looks like, are really important conversations to have and very direct ones at that. And I know that that can be another tough topic, and we'll cover that in another podcast, but talking to your kids in very direct terms is really, really important. You might also see threats of physical harm or actual physical harm. So, where they're being grabbed, the victim is being grabbed by the perpetrator, or they're being hit. Those things do happen. I have heard teenagers tell me about getting slammed into the lockers and being made to look like an accident and things like that. So, it's not uncommon for it to also become physical. So now that you're probably thoroughly scared if you're a parent, I'm going to share with you what are some red flags to look out for. So, one of the big ones I see a lot is excessive jealousy or possessiveness. They are not allowed to have other friends. The victim is not allowed to go hang out with their friends or go to the pool or do things that are super normal teenager activities, like going to the amusement park with their friends or something like that. They're just not allowed to do it unless the significant other is there. They might not be allowed to do it with certain groups of people. They may be not allowed to be by themselves at youth group unless the perpetrator is with them, things like that. And they do it under the guise of, oh, I'm just trying to protect you. I'm just trying to keep an eye on you. I know this other guy really likes you. And so I want them to know that you're mine. And it's like, that is a very high level of control and possession in a teenage relationship, for sure. They will isolate from friends and family. So friends that they used to hang out with, they are no longer allowed to hang out with. And if you ask your kiddo, hey, what happened with Sarah? Then they might say, oh, Sarah and I just stopped talking. And a good question to ask as a parent is why. And we'll talk a little bit more about that here in a few minutes. But it is a big deal to isolate, right? Because you're going to get people away from anyone that might ask a question or say, hey, what's going on here? Why aren't you hanging out with me anymore? And things like that. Even with family, like I have seen kids all of a sudden start to just really hang out in their room. And it's because their significant others, like, well, you have to stay on FaceTime with me. You can't go hang out with your family. And so you see a decided shift in how the teenager is functioning within the family system itself. We talked about passwords a minute ago, getting passwords to Instagram or Snapchat or TikTok or any of the other social media platforms and monitoring the activity. Oh, you like so-and-so's post. Are you into them? What's going on here? When really it's like not that at all. Or like, hey, I logged in and saw all your DMs and it sounds like you're talking to other people, even if there's nothing there to be concerned about at all. But the same thing isn't reciprocated at all. So the perpetrator won't give up their access. They won't let the significant other monitor what they're doing online, but they are definitely keeping close tabs. You might even find some electronic tracking methods happening with apps added to phones or digital devices that parents don't know are there. You're also going to see guilt trips. If you loved me, you would. And this is one of the biggest ways to manipulate another teenager. We all want belonging. And when we are looking for a romantic relationship, when we want one day to be married and to have a significant other and a partner, the if you loved me, you would can be such a powerful manipulation. It's heinous, it's ugly, it's evil, but it is such a powerful way to pull someone in who just wants to be loved. It's okay that we have sex. I know you wanted to wait until marriage, but we're going to get married anyway. So we can just start now when that's really outside the value system, maybe of their partner. And they can get talked into things just like an adult can. And then Hey, send me this picture, send me some nude photos. And God forbid the partner does that and then they use that as leverage. Well, if you don't do what I'm asking you to do, then I'm going to share these with our friends. I'm going to give them to your parents. I'm going to fill in the blank any way that you can use nudes. I will say, if you're a teenager listening to this, I don't care how much you love them. I don't care how nicely they ask. I don't care how many times they ask. Nude photos are a bad idea. It never goes well. I've never seen that go well. And I've worked with lots of teenagers. Keep your clothes on. Don't send those kinds of pictures, even if it is really asked for and really begged for and really persuasive. Also, being afraid of disagreeing. If you are a parent and you say, oh, what do you think about this? And you see the teenager look over at their significant other first and wait until they answer and go, yeah, whatever they said. And you ask, why can't you disagree? Do you have a different opinion? No, I'm fine. I'm fine. That is that's a hard thing. And it's hard too for parents sometimes to catch some of these things because as teenagers, they're learning to do what we call differentiate, learning who they are as a person. So they're very naturally and very normally pushing away from the parent to try to figure it out. And their peers' voices, so their friends and boyfriends and girlfriends' voices, have a lot more weight than our parent voices. And that is so hard to reckon with. But you still have to try. You still have to try to lean in and understand what's going on in your kiddo's life. The best way to do that is to take a very gentle approach and keep communication open without freaking out as much as you can in general day-to-day circumstances. And as a parent, I know it can be really hard to do that. I can't say I've always been perfect because I haven't always been perfect. I'm just going to be honest. I've definitely been the panic parent for sure. Some questions you might want to ask your kiddo is, are you free to disagree with your boyfriend or girlfriend? What happens if you say, I don't agree with you? Are they cool with it? Are they not cool with it? Do they try to strong arm you into believing the same thing? Those are big questions. Another question is, do you feel pressured to do things you don't want to do? And this might be a hard one for a kid to talk to their parent about if they've never had super open communication before. But if you have some suspicions something not so great is going on, this might be a place where you tag in a trusted friend. So if you have another trusted adult in your life, or maybe an older sibling that can go, hey, can you just check in on this? This relationship's not feeling so great. I'm getting a vibe that I don't super love. Can you check with your sister? Can you check with my kiddo on how things are going? Because they might tell someone else. And that goes for youth leaders as well. So if you're a youth leader and you're noticing some just not great dynamics, check in. Don't be afraid to lean into that and to ask questions. A lot of times kids are going to tell you things that maybe they wouldn't tell mom and dad. Same for teachers. Lean in. Hey, are things going okay? What happens if you disagree? Are you being asked to do anything you don't want to do? And be prepared for them to say, no, things are fine right out of the gate. But when they know that you're a safe person to tell, then they might circle back around when it's time to have the conversation about, hey, things aren't good. I didn't know how to tell you before, but I don't know what to do. And that is super normal. Remember that kids aren't going to tell us stuff out of the gate very often unless you've already built that super trust. And even then, if they care about somebody, they're going to try to protect them. It is not dissimilar to how an adult functions in the same situation. I hope you're enjoying this episode of Hey Tabby, and we will be right back to it in just a minute. You know, here on Hey Tabby, we talk a lot about the hard stuff, trauma, abuse, and the toll that it takes on your mind, body, and spirit. And we want you to know you don't have to walk that alone. The Journey in the Process is a trauma-specialized counseling center committed to helping individuals heal from deep wounds through clinically excellent, biblically grounded care. With offices in North Carolina and Texas, telehealth services across 5 states, and biblical counseling available globally, our team of highly trained Christian therapists and certified biblical counselors integrate faith and whole person, evidence-based practices to address trauma at its root. We believe that healing is possible because Jesus still sets the captives free. If you're ready to take that next step toward peace, visit www.thejourneyandtheprocess.com. Trauma doesn't have to eat your lunch forever. There is hope, and we are here to help you find it. Now, let's get back to this week's episode. A lot of times, Christian teens really misunderstand love bombing as like commitment. And the way that kids right now are throwing around, I'm in love with them, they're my person, is pretty fast. It's not a slow build up these days. And I don't know that it ever really was when I was a teenager either, but it's definitely something I've noticed these days where kids are like, yeah, I love this person, but they don't know enough to really love them. And this is an opportunity to lean in and talk about the difference between control and commitment. Here's what being a faithful person looks like, and here's what being a controlling person looks like. Which do you think your relationship is? And that's a really great question to ask, especially if you're a youth leader. And it's something that you really probably should teach on. What does the Bible say about healthy relationship? What does healthy relationship look like? What does healthy mutuality look like and mutual care for each other? And what does it look like to be in a relationship and look like Jesus? I think those things are really important. And I do think it's important in youth group to have very direct teaching about controlling relationships and coercive control. Because again, if it can happen and it is happening, it's happening in your church. And it's probably somebody who's super charming and you'd be like, oh, they would never, but they do. And we want to get ahead of it. We want to ask those questions. We want to talk about what it looks like to have a healthy relationship versus an unhealthy relationship that can become very dangerous. We also don't want to pressure, forgive, and forget. I have seen this happen, particularly in youth groups or even small homeschool groups, so often. And thankfully, I've been asked at times to be invited in and to talk about this and to provide some support and help. And I'm grateful for that. But we do not do sloppy agape. And I'm just going to say it that way. We are not going to force reconciliation, even among kids. We need to really find out what's going on. If someone is unsafe, if someone is coercively controlling, if it's become physical, if they're forcing sexual activity, you need to protect the victim. I do not care if it is the pastor's son or daughter doing the harming. Doesn't matter. I would hope we are all bold enough to do what is right and to call somebody who is perpetrating harm on another person to repentance and not to force reconciliation from a victim. Just like I would never do that in an adult setting, I would never do that in a teenage setting either. We really want to help people understand what a God-honoring, healthy relationship looks like and what a destructive relationship looks like, because we owe it to our kids to keep them out of harm's way and to educate them. They don't know these things. They are not going to intuit them necessarily. We are going to have to help them and support them and let them know what it looks like. And I really do think the church has a big role in that. And I think parents should allow that. And if a youth leader comes to you, mom or dad, and says, hey, little Johnny or little Debbie is doing fill in the blank and it's causing a lot of problems and they're really harming their significant other, as a parent, that might be hard to hear, but gosh, step into it. Man, step into that and call that person to repentance. Like, hey, what are you doing? This is not how we treat people. And you can be part of the solution of setting healthy boundaries so that your kiddo doesn't harm someone else. And it doesn't necessarily reflect on you poorly as a parent. I think this is something I hear all the time is when our kids make choices that we would never condone, and that we feel like it's us. And we have to remember that they have choices to make as well. And as a parent, we can lean into those choices, but we can also set healthy boundaries and limits for them. And it doesn't mean that we're doing something that we shouldn't be doing. It means they made some choices. And if you do look at it and say, ooh, yeah, I have not modeled a healthy relationship in my own home, then that is the time to get your house in order and also deal with your kiddo. It's important that way. And that is something that parents can do, is model a healthy relationship. And if you're like, that's hard, then that might be something you need to go to therapy for and really take a good look at your own life and what you're teaching through your own actions to your kids. You also want to create a safe space for teens to share without judgment. Like I already said, I have been a panic parent where I have heard things and been fearful for my child and absolutely reacted with far too big a reaction to be helpful, truly. When we react with that far too big a reaction to be helpful, it really causes kids to shut down and to not talk to you. So if you're like, oh, I have definitely been a panic parent, then now's a great time to shift that. You can shift it at any point in time, even if you're like, my kid's an adult, and I still sometimes do that. Now, you can shift that, make repairs with your kids, and try something different. And it takes work, right? Nothing is easy at times when we're making a change. We've got to build those new neural pathways and whatnot, but it is well worth doing, no matter how old your kid is. You want to ask open-ended and compassionate questions. This is not the Spanish Inquisition. That's not going to be helpful. But tell me more about like what it feels like when Billy does this. Tell me a little bit more about how many times Sally is texting you and get some more information. Do not minimize things as puppy love or this is how we show people we like them. One of the things that just frustrates me endlessly is when I hear from people, oh, well, I know that they slapped you on the butt or pulled your hair. It just means I have a crush on you. We do not show that by violence, right? And what are we telling our kids? It's okay for someone to put their hands on you in a way that you never asked for? No. So I don't ignore those things. I don't over freak out about them, but I certainly say, well, it's not okay for them to touch you. I don't say, well, they pulled your hair, so they like you, right? Call it what it is. Like, it's not okay to touch somebody without their permission. It's not. And also encourage body awareness and self-trust. So what do they notice in their body? What do they know to be true from their gut? And we don't live and die by gut feelings, but they are very helpful. I don't feel good when I'm in the room with Tommy at all. He freaks me out, man. I catch him staring at me all the time, and it just makes me have the heebie-jeebies, or it feels sus, or whatever a kid is going to say to you. Man, go, yeah, you should pay attention to that. Let's keep an eye on that, see what's going on. That is really important and really helpful. And you are going to empower your kid then to really learn to trust the Holy Spirit living in them who might be saying, run, this is a bad idea. If you're a teenager listening to this, I want to say a few things directly to you. First of all, you are not responsible for somebody else's emotions and behaviors, period, full stop. They are. You don't have to make them feel better. Now, are we going to be unkind? No. But we don't have to be needlessly nice either. As one of my supervisees once said, and I made a meme out of and stuck it on my Instagram, nice girls end up in trunks. And especially for women, we are very much socialized to just say the nicest thing possible and try not to hurt somebody's feelings. And I'm not saying go out of your way to hurt people's feelings. That's a bad idea also. But you don't have to put up with terrible behavior. And you're not responsible to make somebody else feel better. You can be kind. You can be with somebody when they're struggling. But if they say, if I'm not with you, I'm sad. I might ask some questions about that. I really might. I have to be with you or I'm just too depressed to function. That is putting a responsibility on you that is not yours to hold. True love never manipulates. It never coerces and it never isolates. Read 1 Corinthians 13. That is a healthy picture of love. And you do not have to get your worth and value from somebody else. You are lovable just the way that you are. And you don't need a boyfriend or girlfriend to be your everything. In fact, one of the things I tell people all the time is that the "you complete me" line in that old movie Jerry Maguire is such junk. You don't need someone else to complete you. You're already complete. So what do you do if, as a parent, you see, oh no, or a youth leader, you see, oh no? Well, you want to do some safety planning. What do you do to keep them safe? Can you keep them away from this individual? Can you get the other person's parents involved? And we do want to be careful because while not all relationships turn violent, some do. And I have heard of stories where people have tried to break up and the ex-partner has come with a knife or tried to hit them in the parking lot at school or something like that with their vehicle. So we really want to be aware of safety planning. If you're a teenager and you're listening to this, I will encourage you to reach out to the National Teen Dating Abuse Helpline. You can go to loveisrespect.org or you can go to domesticshelters.org and get information as well. So go and get information. And if you're like, I need a little something more, parents, I would encourage you, take the family to therapy. Let's work through some of it Because if there's a dynamic that's perpetuating it or a really unhealthy, unsafe relationship, then that might be something a therapist can help you out with. I just want to remind everybody as we end here today that healing's possible even after harmful relationships. Even if you're a teenager and you're like, I don't know about all this, you can still heal. You can learn how to set different boundaries and you can learn how to see those red flags. As we often say in our practice, those red flags don't mean it's a carnival. And you don't have to just go with it. One of the things I want to share, I asked a couple friends who have had some challenges in their relationships, what would you want to tell your younger self? And here is some of the things they said. Just because someone else wants to be with you doesn't mean you have to be with them. You don't have to say yes just because someone else wants it. And don't overlook the red flags because of the attention. Like I said earlier, we all want to have a sense of belonging. We all want to be wanted. We all want to have people who want to be with us. But that attention shouldn't help you overlook red flags. Just because someone is giving you attention and they're giving you that sense of belonging, if there are red flags, run. You don't have to stay in it, and you certainly never have to marry the person. I hope this was a helpful topic. I hope that you learned a little bit about coercive control in teenage relationships. I hope that if you are seeing some of these in your kiddo, that you'll stop and ask some questions, invite that conversation. Don't be a panic parent. Try to keep it together. And if you can't as a parent, if you're like, oh gosh, I don't know how to not be a panic parent, reach out to us. We would help you with some parent coaching to help you not be a panic parent. As I say often in advocacy class, as parents, we need to stay a chill 72 degrees because that's going to help our kiddos also be a chill 72 degrees. And look, like I said, I know when we get emotionally activated and we are worried for our children that we have a hard time staying at that 72 degrees. So if you need some skills, if you need support, reach out today. We are happy to help. Thank you for being here with me on this week's episode of Hey Tabby. All of the links and resources I mentioned will be in the description below. I'm so glad that you were here. Have healthy relationships, and I will see you again next time. Thanks for joining me for today's episode of Hey Tabby. If you're looking for a resource that I mentioned in the show and you want to check out the show notes, head on over to tabithawestbrook.com/Hey Tabby. That's HEYTABI, and you can grab it there. I look forward to seeing you next time. I hope you're enjoying this episode of Hey Tabby, and we will be right back to this episode. You know, here on Hey Tabby, we talk a lot about the hard stuff, trauma, abuse, and the toll that it takes on your mind, body, and spirit. And I want you to know you don't have to walk that alone. At The Journey in the Process, our team of highly trained trauma therapists help people heal from the deep wounds of complex trauma, all kinds of abuse, coercive control, sexual harm, and problematic sexual behaviors. We don't just manage symptoms. We work with your whole self, your mind, your body, and your spirit, using evidence-based approaches like EMDR, brain spotting, somatic experiencing, and internal family systems to help you find deep healing. Whether you're in North Carolina or Texas, we can meet with you in person or through secure telehealth sessions. We also have personalized intensives if you're in another area, and you can come to us in Texas or North Carolina and do that deep work over several days. Regardless of how we connect, we strive to make this a safe, judgment-free space where your story is heard, your pain is honored, and your healing is possible. If you're ready to take that next step toward peace, visit www.thejourneyandtheprocess.com, and we'll have that linked in the description as well. Trauma doesn't have to eat your lunch forever. There is hope, and we are here to help you find it. Now, let's get back to this week's episode.